Good morning. It is time for a recap of last night's Symbaroum campaigns. Last night was David's turn to GM us. It was session 12 of our campaigns, which is, again, I think we've got a total of maybe 16 total with a couple of two-parters, or maybe 14 total sessions, but already fantastic. So David, this is good stuff. So David's character Malleus had been stricken in one of Dell, I think in Dell's first session. We all suffered. I think it was Dell's first session. No, it would have been Dell's second session. We've had a lot of great sessions. I believe we were all exposed to a kind of a corrupt fungus, and Malleus, I think, filled that role and suffered a little corruption, and so his characters had this lingering illness where he breathed in fungus, and so David sets it up that Malleus is progressing and getting worse. And Malleus is David's character, and he's of course bedridden, and he has gone to the apothecary Ansel, and Ansel is promised he can remedy and give him some relief, maybe not cure it, but he could at least give him relief, and I would assume a cure, but that's up to David. And he promises he can with the proper relic or ingredients, could concoct something for Malleus, and that is what we are ultimately looking to do. So Tarot, of course, when I GM'd Tarot, narratively, we needed armor and equipment, and so I provided Malleus and Tarot with army surplus gear. In exchange, while I ran my session, Tarot would have had to guard the stables for the Queen's army in exchange for those goods. And so that's how I wrote my character out of the last session. David's writing his character out as, of course, suffering with this continued illness, which makes total sense. But on top of that, it fuels the reason we go back into the Davokar to a ruin where Ansel is pretty certain we can find the decanter of Yulvarn or something. I can never pronounce it. David comes up with these great names that aren't easy to pronounce phonetically, but it might even be real words. Might even be real Swedish or Danish words. I don't know. I didn't think to look that up, but it might be stuff, which is cool. Anyway, and he provides us with a map and tells us that there is a barge master at the river in the Bright Davokar who might be willing to take us as far east, and then we'd have to still hike in to this ruined area to look for this thing. So we've got Tabello, Todd's character. We have Dell playing Bonner now, who has inherited the Bonner, who was formerly his character's boon in a way. He's formerly his character's apprentice, but I think in the book it's a boon and a bane or something like that. It's kind of a term. There's a term that they use. You can have and because he was an NPC kind of torch wielder, Dell just kind of stepped into his shoes when Thariah was killed by the spiders in the last okay. Let's see here. So we set off. David does traditional, more what I think Symbaroum, the original core rulebook implies, which is something I enjoy. Narrative, right? A narrative interlude. How we arrive at Yeanor's Rest, which is a small riverside, village with only one or two permanent structures, wooden structures. The rest is haphazardly springs up around this place, and not super safe, but it's basically embarking and disembarking of river craft, bringing goods and peoples. And it is here in this village we'll find the barge master, which is Rolfrun, I think is his name. and try to get him to take us easterly, right? So while we're here, though, we realize we traveled this far in. We realize we need to get some stuff. So we need to get some bandages, and Taro approaches the Queen's Ranger in the street and attempts to find out any intel on this area. We're going to an area that was once the Jazora barbarian clan. I think it's Jazora, and they have been they're one of the clans that are no more. They were destroyed either by other clans or by a mixture of things, Ambrians, etc. But it is a Jazora area that we're headed to, and so Taro wants intel, and so I approached two rangers in the street, hoping they'll share with us what they know of the region around that area, and just to try to get a feel for what we might expect. But I fell miserably, even offering them a thaler for their trouble. I fell miserably in my persuasion roll, and I'm dressed down by the elder ranger, who warns me it's bad etiquette to approach a Queen's Ranger and attempt to pay them for information. And so he dresses me down pretty good in the street, and fantastic, again, role play there. Great way to represent my failed persuasion role. It was perfect. And so I don't come away with knowing anything other than I irritated the Queen's Rangers not to do that, not to go about talking to the Queen's Rangers in that manner. And I mentioned Malleus, thinking, Malleus was being a former Queen's Army, that they might know him, and they don't know him, but that could have gone badly for me too. I don't know Malleus's history with the Queen's Army, right? He could have been dishonorably discharged or something. So fortunately, Malleus is not famous in the army for leaving the army. So, but that came to me only after that role that it might not have been real smart. Cabello pulls me aside and says, "Why are you telling the Queen's Rangers our business?" So Taro, of course, is literally looking for a leg up as to what we may face here, what is known of this area. I want intel. I think it's a good idea, but I told them truthfully all of our business, and so Cabello, on top of that, pulls me aside and says, "You're telling them all of our business. Don't tell them everything, But it was too late. Taro had already told them everything, so it was great. And again, it was a great little role. But it was why we do this thing, right? We're characters trying to do a game thing, trying to achieve certain game stuff, and the characters come out of all of that. Cabello. So we decide to go to the barge master. Turns out Cabello knows Ralph Dewar, I think is his name, Ralph Dewar. And again, Cabello turns out he had a tryst with his sister. He's angry with Cabello. Bonner and I stay back, listening from a distance as we just don't know what's coming from this exchange. Turns out he's not really mad that he had known his sister in the biblical sense. He's more angry that he did not. He had to purchase a wedding gift on behalf of Cabello for his sister. And so Cabello offers up the remnants of one of the treasures he found in the last session. He gives him the stone box with the doll and says, no, I brought a gift. Here it is. And so everybody's happy. And he promises travel on the barge for all of us, but we have to do our service on the barge as also security for the barge, and he will pay us for the time, a thaler a day for the ride up the river, and then a thaler security for the ride back. So we're going to make a little thaler as actual guards on the boat in transit, which is it's a really great deal for us. And so of course we accept it. Cabello accepts that. He's not leaving until the morn, so we find out where we can stay, and it's one of the permanent residents. There's only two permanent residents here, and they're wooden buildings. The rest are tents and ramshackled, slapped up, can easily be torn down. There may not be much left of this place if something changes in the future. Kind of very very temporary type of setup. So the end. And Taro, so one of Taro's personal goals, when I created Taro's character, he's a mountain ranger from Redina, who gave up being a ranger for his hometown in Redina, and headed off to the big city, to the Davakar, to become an explorer, adventurer, and because he wants to, have adventures, but he hopes to hear his name regaled immortality, gain immortality through poems and songs that they will sing and tell tales of. So this was Taro's young, naive intent when he headed to Thistlehold, as a character background. A personal goal is to become a hero, is to become something that they tell tales about. And in the lore of Symbaroum, it talks much about how actors, bards, poets, singers, are very, very important to the inns and the taverns of Thistlehold, and many big dinners happen with actors telling tales and singing, telling poetry. So Taro would have seen these things. He would in the world know that his heroes. There's no television, right? There's no sports. So your heroes are these myths from these tales, and Taro wants to be one of those things. So that was my setup for Taro in Symbaroum. So he had lost faith after Dell's second session, in which he faced down the horrors of something he could have never imagined. He fell into drink, drug, and debauchery, became basically homeless, stealing from his. So Terrell then went into another place. He lost his ability to hunt or treasure hunt in the Davakar. So my motivation for Taro, at that point, Taro, it was, he dropped into a hole of desperation. He faced the dark night of the soul, so to speak, and only getting that back slowly through facing dangers that he could deal with, and then he slowly got his confidence back. So here he is now, trained with he trained and earned shield fighter. This is only a real ability. He's leveled up now 4 times, but the first 3 level ups, I spent a point to increase attributes. So he was just becoming more efficient at, with thought, cunning. He was becoming more vigilant and aware of those things around him. And he was becoming better at being discreet. And so those were his 3 level ups. I was adding a point or so to attributes as he leveled up, but I had not acquired any special abilities or traits, etc. No rituals. So Taro hadn't really evolved as far as becoming a better at combat or learning a craft or something. Well, the 4th level up, again, I made it a shield fighter, and I like to narratively explain how my characters improve if there's those kind of improvements. So I explained while he was guarding the stables and to earn the army surplus goods for Malleus and he, since they had no money. This is a crew that hit hard times as they were robbed of their right to legally hunt in the Davakar. So we didn't have any. We only started making money, serious thalers, in the last couple of sessions. So our crew has not had any money. We've been living off the Chamberlain's good graces. He's allowed us a shelter, and we've worked odd jobs. And then we've had a few of these things. So Taro now, with money in his pocket, successful in his mind, successful adventures for the group under their belt. He sets his mind on, he realizes he must find or pay a scribe to note these adventures, or follow us around and chronicle our adventures, particularly Taro's achievements, and eventually work to write song and poetry and tell mighty poems about Taro and his group, right? So Taro's now recognizing, hanging around Thistlehold, that this is something he may have to do. He may have to employ someone to start chronicling this stuff, because somebody's got to write these songs and get them out there, right? So, well, in the end, he searches around for a minstrel or bard, somebody that would be there in this place. And I didn't want Taro. I purposely did not do this in Thistlehold, because Thistlehold knows Taro for the most part. And so, thinking a little further out, if we stopped at any civilization where there might be a minstrel or a chronicler or a scribe or a bard, or somebody that he could employ for the reasonable money. It wasn't because it was cheaper. It's because he wanted somebody who did not know them. There's pieces of their story he would like left out. Although, it's a greater story to have stumbled and to become that great hero. But in Taro's mind, he wants to edit out, of course, the period of darkness, right, where he was drinking and drugging and whoring and had given up, right? Okay. So while here, I thought this is the perfect chance to find somebody. So sure enough, David says, yes, there is a guy here with a mandolin. He's young and it's a beat up old mandolin. And so I approach him and I make him an offer. I'll pay you $1 a day. I'll give you a thaler, which is 10 days work in advance. I need someone to follow us and chronicle this. Now, Cabello immediately takes offense to this. Cabello's like, listen, we don't want to advertise who we are and what we do. And Cabello obviously sees it as self-serving for Taro. Bonner has, of course, become a fledgling. I see Bonner as someone who is, at some point, has just had the whisper of Prios. The touch of Prios has coursed through his vein and his heart. So he is not a man so much of the church as he has discovered Prios. Prios has somehow made himself aware, the god Prios has made himself aware to young Bonner through his adventures. But of course, he is not a man of God, and that he's a church. He has not attended the church. He has not been raised. He has not been raised in the church. He's not been properly trained. So it's very cool. We're seeing Bonner is a believer in Prios, but he's really not. He wasn't. He's not a liturgy, right? So that's very cool. So this is like self-made, self-aware Christian, so to speak, right? It's like this person has an epiphany and God speaks to them, but they're not of a religious order. So Dell's got a very complicated and very interesting young character right now, right? He's committed to Prios, but has no foundational education. So it's really interesting. He's an outsider of Prios kind of thing, which I love. It's great. It's brilliant. Okay. So that's Dell's character, Bonner, right? He's discovered and he's begun to foster these rituals, these abilities, these spells and abilities, right? Okay. And also provides us a little bit of help with as a medicus healer. So he could help us if we get badly wounded or something. Okay. So knowing now that I didn't, Taro did not have to hire a medicus, because we had discussed that we really shouldn't go off into the Davokar again without a healer or medicus. And I thought, well, we can hire one for $1 a day, and they can provide a backup character. They can provide a torch bearer. They can provide a camp keeper. They can provide medical for us if we need it in the Davokar when we camp. And so knowing now that we don't need them, Taro set his sights on being able to spend this money in his pocket on getting that chronicler, which would give us a backup character, a torch bearer, a camp keeper. But at the same time, Taro does want someone to begin to document what we've achieved, because we have. I mean, we've survived. Malleus and Taro and Cabello have survived some pretty harrowing things, right? So in Taro's mind, and we didn't. Taro wasn't involved in the rescue of the Chamberlain's grandchildren, I mean. But he's part of this crew. So there's a lot here that we have actually achieved. So it's one of those things where at what point do we begin to have reputations? At what point do we begin to, even find out that our names are heard in the streets, right? Okay. Especially since we've been in this whole months and months and months. Okay. So anyway, I'm able to, with a failed persuasion roll, I don't easily convince the bard. However, a promise is a negotiation, a promise of a new mandolin, and the promise that he'll be paid for 10 days in advance, thaler right now, he agrees. And so I pay him a thaler, and I run down the street, and we bind the bandages. I get the ink and the parchment, and the paper, and a mandolin, the cheapest, newest mandolin I can get, and provide it to Jorand, our new chronicler. And he really is there to chronicle what we all do. But they're all having Cabello does not want his name in these chronicles. He does not want to advertise who he is and what he does, which is brilliant, because Cabello has some, not everybody wants to be a celebrity, right? And so Cabello Cabello is very careful with drawing much attention to himself. So again, we got these characters, which is great because the whole party doesn't have the same goals as Taro has, right? So it definitely becomes kind of a joke that Taro now has hired his own biographer, right? Okay, so which yeah, that's what he is, right? But he's a backup character too, is the way I see it. Okay, because I don't know how dangerous this trip's going to be, right? I think all of us have 10 toughness, which a couple of smacks from a ogre or a rage troll, and we're out of we cease to exist. So it's although we are level 4 in a way, we've leveled up 3 or 4 times, and we're improving. You don't have a hit point. You don't have a hit point thing grow, so it's really cool, right? So we become more competent, but still vulnerable, which I really appreciate about Symbaroum. Which I will talk a little bit about when I talk about my favorite games. Symbaroum is going to be one of those. Of course, I kind of already have, but okay. Long story short, I'm able to make the deal. We sleep in the village inn. We have bandages. Taro loans the young Bonner another thaler. Can Taro to him? He has 9 thalers in his pocket. He's pretty much throwing money around. Thaler is a gold piece, and to help Bonner purchase robes to give him some armor. And so he's fully outfitted now. Everybody's ready to roll. We climb on the barge and we set sail. And meanwhile, getting on the barge, we run into 2 men of the Church of Prios, 2 Turge and his lector, a Turge and his lector, right? And he is a mature, sour-faced, uppity up, kind of like a bishop who expects people to bow before him and to part ways, make room and kiss his ring kind of guy. And of course, Taro is a mercenary, basically. He has no time for, Taro is oblivious to what happens around him in those situations. His vigilance in the field, much improved. His awareness is much improved. But when it comes to civilization and it comes to people as a ranger, former ranger, Taro really doesn't pay attention to these trappings, right? Okay. And of course, Bonner being touched in a way by Prios, pays attention. So we set sail. First day goes without problem. And during our trip, 2 days on the river before we were going, we don't have any ill effects. We do see other river craft give us a wide berth and vice versa. Taro mentions to Cabello, I have a feeling pirates are a problem here on the river. As again, our captain of the ship didn't tell us what we may face. He just wants us as security on this voyage. But Taro thinks maybe pirates are a particular problem, right? Other vessels getting too close to your ship or to your vessel is not a good thing, right? But we get 2 days downriver without mishap, without a problem, which is great. David has us make, I think, a couple of random monster checks or random encounter checks, which is very cool. And meanwhile, Bonner has a great moment talking to the elder Prios Turgi, and investigates, because Bonner at Ansel's shop, the apothecary's shop, he digs through an old chest of trinkets, and Bonner fishes out of this a Prios holy piece made of pyrite, fool's gold. And he keeps it. Ansel gives it to him and allows him to keep it because it's worthless to Ansel, and he has it in a box of junk. So fantastic. So Bonner's slowly piecing together his own how do I say it? Denomination of Prios, right? So again, think about the Christian church, right? The history of the Christian church. Martin Luther hangs his treaty on the door in 1500, right? And creates a war in the Christian church and creates 30,000 different denominations of Christianity, right? In the long history, we have a denomination, Monty Python makes a great joke of this, in The Meaning of Life, right? The denomination of the sandal, his sandal falls off in Monty Python, and somebody picks up and says, we are the followers of the one true sandal. And so I'm seeing Bonner as beginning this journey as a Prios, someone who believes firmly in the powers but at the same time might be well on at 17 or 18 establishing his own denomination of Prios, which is which I envy because genius. I don't know if that's what Dell's plan is. I don't think Dell has a plan. Dell's just playing a character, but I'm seeing it. Taro's seeing it as, you know. So he has this meeting with a man of the church, and it goes as the elder man basically says, you are not formally trained. You are not. You need to abide the foundations of the church. You need to get, if you want to be a real man of Prios, you've got to do these things. So David does a brilliant job of outlining the real church of Prios in a way, and the expectations of, as a follower. You can't just believe in God. You've got to swear yourself. You got to become a man of the dogmatic rites and rituals, right? And Bonner just, it kind of goes through one ear and out the other. And Bonner's like, well, I got my trinket, and I know I am like you. It's a standoff. In a way, it's a very cool metaphoric standoff between the established church of Prios and the young believer in Prios who doesn't necessarily need the church. And genius. It's fantastic. And this is what I love about, and again, those who think role playing is about vanity, is about vain moments or vanity, it's crazy. It's about people existing in a world, characters existing in a world and establishing potential things. There could definitely be now, on my next session as a GM, I can craft some, as Bonner continues to do what he does, he could draw the attention of the Prios church. He ain't gonna like it, right? Yeah. So this stuff becomes valuable background. It becomes who these characters are, and Taro's witnessing this, right? And they're of course witnessing Taro as becoming a self-centered, self-serving, wannabe hero, so to speak. So that's their take. It doesn't make any difference, but I love that, right? And Cabello, again, keeping his head down, just trying to navigate the dangers of the Davacar, and has his own personal goals, I'm sure, right? I think mostly to survive and to keep his head down, right? So we have this great moment on the barge between Bonner and the man of the church. And a great church meets believer, right? Untrained believer, someone who's not dogmatically sworn to the oaths of the church. Very cool. And it's great too that David acknowledges that this is what good DMs do. Pay attention to the players, pay attention to the characters, because hopefully characters present something, players present something as their character, and that doesn't have to be the reason. It doesn't have to, sessions don't have to shine lights on characters or players, but it is so cool to know that the people you play with are paying attention to your characters, are paying attention to the stories, they're paying attention to their overall. And because we're rotating the role, definitely hard. Because if I'm GMing something every week or every month, whatever, for long term, I'm the one kind of watching these characters, and there's a thread there that I can pull together, and vice versa. But no doubt players appreciate it when their characters have validity, when their characters mean something other than, And so David, it was very cool to provide this opportunity for Bonner to, in a way, it was multi-layered for me watching David bring directly to Dell's character Bonner the metaphor of the church and what that's kind of about in Symbaroum. And it gives Dell an opportunity to either talk about that or embrace that, or maybe even decide that will he fall in and become a man of the church? Will he return to, because he advises him, when you don't go back to Thistlehold, but if you must be in Thistlehold, that warren of thieves and that den of sinners, stay in the chapel, stay in the church at Thistlehold. So he advises the young Bonner that the very least you can do is avoid the secular world outside of your duties, which is also great advice, right, from a man of the church, right? So it isn't like the church is evil, but they abide by particular beliefs and they abide by particular structure. And so it was very, very cool. I could see this giving now Dale an opportunity as a player, and as Bonner an opportunity to decide, does he take that route through the Church of Prios, or does he continue on his path of being a believer who really has no foundations, right? Which is very, very cool. All right. So we arrive at our drop-off point. He tells us he will be back in the morning, be here, or he does not want to have to come looking for us. And so we disembark and we trudge off, and the map is true. And the map brings us very quickly to the foot of a large, and you can see the images. David does another great thing David does that I don't do. Todd does this well using Roll20 with the simulated tabletop and maps and things. Todd uses brilliantly the modern digital tabletop devices. Fantastic. David uses images in our Discord to help help us understand what we're looking at and seeing. So David, a great use of Discord for visual aids, and I don't. I never do. I don't in person, and I never have. And that's something about me. As much as I've learned, as much as I've changed, as much as I've purposely changed or tried to change how I go about things, I love theater of the mind, so I don't. I try to quickly give descriptions that are hopefully will inspire their imagination. But I like to keep everything for the most part theater of the mind. Let them visualize to some degree. But I love that David supplies this visual aids too, and I can appreciate as a player these things, and whether I need them or not, right? So I certainly wouldn't need David to supplement any extra stuff, but it's cool, right? It's really nice, and it does make sure we're all kind of seeing the same thing, right? It gives us an idea that that if the pictures are true, we all have got a pretty good idea what we're standing in. I mean, on the stone stairs leading up into the temple, and right, so we all have a visual kind of an idea of what we're looking at, which is nice, right? Okay. And some people are visual. Being someone who's worked directly with the public as a professional, you learn to say what you expect, show what you expect, and then they do, right? So it's say, show, do. But some people are audio. They learn very well from listening. Some people learn very well from seeing. And that's why we do all those things. When I teach somebody a new exercise and how to do it properly, I show it to them. I tell them how to do it. I show it to them. And then I have them demonstrate it to me, and we make sure everything's right. And some really get it from hearing. But all three of those things make sure somebody learns the proper techniques to do an exercise safely and properly, etc. And they can take that hopefully with them wherever they go, right? That's true of everything we do when we teach, right? As someone who's managed businesses, there's just good ways to teach. Not everybody learns the same way, right? Everybody learns differently. So, and I think GMing same way, right? Some people hear really well, some people see better, and so we got to be capable of doing all those things to best communicate with our players. So there's less frustration and more joy, more fun for everybody. Okay. So we arrive, and Taro immediately draws sword and shield and approaches slowly, discreetly, looking carefully about. But he begins the process to the stone steps and up the stone steps. I fail a vigilance check. Bonner and Cabello successfully navigate behind me. Bonner is drawn for some reason. He is drawn to this. So Bonner, in kind of a hurries past Taro on the stairs to get up into the temple. And I can't remember if we got into the temple, and we see these caskets. It's not caskets, these dais, etc. Cabello draws on his understanding in the lore in the culture that wherever they keep their treasures, their artifacts, their relics, they will not be here. They will be buried with the tombs. They will be interred with those buried in such a place, and that would be underground, somewhere below this. So we begin to look around for stairs down, and Cabello spots them and says, "Here." And once we're inside this stone temple, looking for the stairwell down, as Cabello is quickly analyzed and understands the culture and the lore that we're looking at. Which is a successful lore master role. It's brilliant. Again, way David does this, he's a veteran, right? It's brilliant. Joran begins all of a sudden to play his mandolin and sing like the first stanza of as Joran now starts to accompany us, or Taro, at least in his mind, hears this, and he sings like the first stanza, the first bits of his poem aloud and ringing and echoing through this chamber, which Cabello is instantly so much for surprise, right? Cabello and of course Taro is motivated. It's the hero song, right? It's the hero theme, right? It kicks in, right? For Taro. So Taro kind of pumps up and is like, yeah, that sounds good. I like that. Yes. But it doesn't cross Taro's mind that this ain't a good time to celebrate, to sing loudly our arrival. And the Cabello basically barks at me to shut up my bard, and I tell Jordan, yes, yes, draw your weapon, boy. This is the time to quill and paper, write it down, sing it tonight at the campfire. But draw your weapon, draw your quill and pen, write these things down. So we hushed Jordan, fortunately, but it's too late, right? He's told the whole damn area that we're there, right? But now at least we all know to remind Jordan in any more future excavations, keep your mouth, singing when we ask you to sing, right? You could tell your tales. You could regale us with tales of tarot during dinner, right? Okay. So Jordan follows suit, breaks out his quill and his parchment, and is scribbling furiously as we down into the dungeons. I asked Jordan to light a torch, and so he lights the torch to give us some light as we get down there. There's this thick fog at around our feet and knees, and it's almost cloying, right? It's a thick, cloying, purplish fog around our knees. We can't see the floor where we step, and it's cloying. It's almost grabbing and pulling on us, right? As we move through these tombs, these in a stone sarcophagi, and one of them in the center for the most part, and it's at the top of it is skew and open. So Taro heads toward that as Bonner is drawn to the middle of this tomb. Something kind of brings Taro right out to the middle of it. Not Taro, Bonner out to the middle of it. And Cabello sees rising out of this fog a man-sized guardian, a wraith, a white, and warns Bonner as it tries to touch him. Meanwhile, two more rise up, and the second one falls upon Bonner. So two of them are drawn to Bonner's energy, his Prios energy, so to speak. So they really are drawn, especially when Bonner lights off basically an anti-corruption, anti-undead aura. It's called the Holy Aura. So Bonner then, kind of like a Holy Aura bubble, boom, lights up these weights, kind of like an area attack, so to speak, hitting all of them, passing. Thank God we now have Bonner, right? Because we would have been sword and shield fighting creatures like this. So Bonner instantly is a fantastic weight in strategy, right? Using these types of things. Cabello strikes one. Taro chooses on his first turn to actually reach into this thing, reaching around trying to find this relic. Pulls out a bone, as he's reaching into this sarcophagi, he rummaging around the bones, etc., trying to find a decanter, some type of relic. He pulls up a bone. The first round of combat goes fairly safely. There's some damage suffered, but nobody's drastically injured. Bonner conjures up a guardian on the second round as he is struck and loses focus on his holy aura, so he can't continue to do damage with the holy aura. But he conjures the guardian. Cabello again doing damage to one of the whites, and Taro hearing Bonner's cries as he was hit twice in the first round. Taro, frustrated, pulls his hand from the crypt and rushes off to strike one of these whites attacking Bonner in the back. It is not incorporeal. It is not lacking weight. It's actually a surprise to Taro as it is hard. It is heavy. It's not flesh. It's not incorporeal, so to speak. And so Taro's kind of surprised that his sword hits something that's dense, very dense. Okay. We end up continuing this fight. Cabello brings one down. Bonner brings one down. Jorand draws sword. As it turns out, he's a fairly competent swordsman. And Jorand, the signed on NPC Chronicle, kills a white. Taro, immediately seeing that they've got the fight under control, jumps headfirst into this until he finds the vessel, the decanter, pulls it out, and as they bring down the whites, and Taro says, "Let's out of here," and he tucks the decanter under his arm, and he goes back up the stairs in 3 steps as they all huff that Taro, the hero, there he goes, off and the curtain falls. So I'm assuming there'll be an interlude that we get safely back to Malleus, and Ansel hopefully treats. But who knows, right? Maybe Dell in his next turn will just put us there on the river, and we'll go from there. I don't know if we're going to narrate the return, the interlude return, and the healing of Malleus, or what. But fantastic, another phenomenal session. So again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't take for granted the people I play with, and I don't take for granted that they were willing to try my favorite modern game. And that we have been able to do this for a few months. We've been able to do this for 12 sessions, 12 or more, 14, 15 sessions in total of really my favorite modern game, fantasy game. So I want to thank the guys for this, because it's been a great joy. And I want to really thank them for also doing a rotating GM. We all get to enjoy what it's like to GM this game, and we all get to enjoy what it's like to be characters in a Symbaroum sessions. And so I've had a brilliant time, and I love it. And it is proved to me that it is a keeper. I mean, it's proved to me in the long haul now, because this will be, if we've had 15 or 16 plus I've had 22 sessions of Symbaroum under my belt in the last since 20, whatever this original, this isn't the original, this is the second printing of the original book, since I gifted my first edition at the time to Steve. And he's since moved. Steve's since moved. So I love it, and it is cool to have an opportunity to play different games, and it's great to have an opportunity to play the games you love and the games you like. But it's really nice to have a chance to play games you really know and believe in, and not always finding players. I mean, because I hate to say it again, but the Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons dominated local tables in almost every city in America, especially now. D&D 5e dominates. People don't even think role-playing exists in any other way, right? They only see it in one thing. I know D&D. That game. And they'll play it gladly, not knowing whether it's the best choice or whether it's a bad choice, and it seems like that's your only choices. So it's really nice to find people who will try different stuff and to embrace it, and to give it a fair shake, right? Some things I think we all know we just aren't going to do long term. I think there's plenty of games that come along where, if we were young and we didn't have jobs and we didn't have families, we didn't have other responsibilities, you would love to sink your teeth into a long-term campaign of Conan, or a long-term campaign of Star Trek Adventures, or a long-term, because I think those games with that kind of character and those kind of systems could foster remarkable experiences long term. But it's not easy, it's not easy to find and to do those things long term. So, I woke up this morning to get my coffee, and was thinking, my greatest inspirations in fantasy were, of course, Tolkien, Lord of the Ring, The Hobbit as a kid, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I really didn't discover till I was older. And I still read The Hobbit annually. I love The Hobbit. And Conan. As a kid, I loved Conan. I loved the Conan magazines. I didn't start reading the actual Conan stories until I was older. But I loved the Conan black and white large format magazines. I just collected them, and I discovered those because my oldest brother had them, and I'd never seen it before. And I fell in love with Conan large format black and white illustrated magazines. Still, to this day, nothing. I would drag those Conan mags with me all over town, man. When my dad and I would go, in the car, go somewhere, I would, flip. And I'll never forget my father saying, he'd see, images like, of Conan lopping the heads off of enemies, and he'd say, boy, that's not how you go about conflict, right? My dad would always make sure I wasn't nuts, right? So I'd get the fatherly, do you understand that that's fiction? That's fantasy. Do you understand? So he was a good dad, right? In that he made sure I wasn't, you know, and I was like, what are you talking about? Of course, this is all fake, which is why when it came to, I was old enough to play D&D, my father had no qualms. He knew I was doing D&D. The satanic panic never worried my parents because they knew who I was, and they knew they could trust I knew what I was doing, and I wasn't doing it for those reasons, and or I wasn't going to be corrupted by people that might use those things. So, and still, but I woke up this morning and I rolled out of bed. I thought, damn, I miss Conan. I think I don't mean the game. I'm thinking Conan it is such perfect fantasy in a way, and it's like, gosh, I don't have 2D20 Conan. I did have the hardback 2D20 Conan, and I loved it. But it was one of those that I sent to Wayne's Books in a big trade, and I packed up a couple of boxes of my games, and I shipped many of those games that I knew I wouldn't probably play again. I certainly wouldn't have enough. I wouldn't have any local interest, and so those were traded in to get old games like Traveler and Holmes, etc. Get some of my old classic favorites that were fairly expensive from Wayne's Books, so they were good trade value for me to get some old games like the original Traveler, etc. And so I didn't do a bad thing in that I got great old games, but I woke up this morning thinking Conan. It's the perfect long-term adventure, high adventure Conan. And I love Symbaroum, but for some reason I woke up this morning thinking about Conan, going, man, that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity there, right? To really sink your teeth into remarkable characters in these amazing high adventure fantasy campaigns. I mean, we're taking Symbaroum. In my opinion, we've taken Symbaroum beyond just the banging around the jungle, so to speak, digging up treasures, right? We've already enjoyed Symbaroum on a level greater than that, I think, personally. And partially because we've had to rotate GMs, and partially because Symbaroum sets itself up first as using interludes to get to scenes to accomplish a thing, as opposed to it being kind of a random hex crawl, random play to find out preparation. So I think Symbaroum is a great character game, right? That allows these relationships and these characters to develop and to change, right? So I talked a lot about those dark places, how I love that there's no leveling up in those dark places. You make a character, that is who your character is, and your job is to survive. And that's wonderful. But at the same time, that leaves out that experience of Taro improving. When I improved Taro's cunning, and I described it that he's now been he's been out there and he's seen things that he had never seen before. So he's just improved his cunning. He's become smarter. And then how he began to work on being more discreet in public and being more discreet when he was in the Davokar, and he improved his discreet. And so you narratively begin to recognize, to improve these little pieces of your character. If you think about it in the character and you think about it narratively, you see an evolution of the character, even if it isn't happening in game time. Taro is evolving, even if that's just how I level him up and I describe how he improved his discreet and how he learned shield fighting. And so we're seeing that Taro exists in Thistlehold outside of these campaigns, outside of these sessions. What I've always said, what happens at the table is all that counts, and that's true. But if you're playing a campaign, what's happening between sessions becomes just as important, especially if there is character development where we level up things, where we learn things, where we have to practice spells, we have to learn spells, we have to screw up spells, we have to hire minions to build our stronghold. That those things aren't, you're not gonna have a session it's just about that. It's that nobody wants to get together and Joe, what are you doing? Well, I'm scribbling down spells, and that happens kind of, but those are things we should assume between sessions, right? And Symbaroum is a perfect avenue for that kind of character and kind of play. And it really works great rotating the GM, right? Because the secrets of the Davokar are always the secrets of the Davokar. So there are no great GM secrets. Like there's this evil warlock in that mountain over there, and they got to stop him. And I know all the secrets. And no, because so it's very easy to swap GM roles. There's not some grand plan that I'm keeping from the players that they can't know about, right? And so it's been a wonderful experience. So I want to thank the guys again. Great games. that's Symbaroum. I was going to do again. I'm going to continue covering some of my favorite games because I do have some that I just love and that are my favorites. This is obviously I've already really talked about this. It is on the list of my favorite games. Um, Brilliant. So, all right. Thank you for watching. Everybody have a great week.